Hey besties, welcome back. Today we're getting into episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Every Year After, and whew, our girl Percy is going through it. The tension is tensioning. The chemistry is, I think, maybe chemistrying. And some of these decisions, I need everyone who was involved in the writer's room to hand over their phones and go sit in a corner for 5 minutes. I have some thoughts. You'll hear them all throughout this episode. These 3 episodes served us major drama, feelings. We've got moments that made me kick my feet. We've got moments that made me stare in the wall in disbelief at why we would make some of the changes that we've made. So grab whatever your emotional support snack is right now. Not gonna lie, I'm having a smoothie. And let's get into it right after this.
Hello, everybody. I'm coming to you a day late, maybe not a dollar short, but a little late because I'm on vacation, something I haven't done in over a year since I've started this podcast as an indie podcaster. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that building the community is something that's really important to me. And I've been trying to find the right place, the right ways. And we have the Patreon. Doesn't really seem to be sticking. It's not sticking for me, and it's not really sticking for you guys. So I have been so lucky and so blessed to be the recipient, the Air Amplify New Voices grant, which has also allowed me to be part of an incredible cohort with many talented mentors and experts in the podcasting field. And over the course of the past few weeks, I have been building something behind the scenes that I wasn't really sure whether it was going to be the right thing or not. I was sort of giving the Patreon another chance, and it just seems like for what I'm trying to build and what I want this community to be, we need to be somewhere else. And so I want to introduce to you today a little bit of recycling of the intentions of the Patreon, but in a brand new space. So it's Too Femme, Too Furious, because you know I can't resist a fast and furious pun on this podcast. But it is hosted on School, and it is a cultural salon for baddies who want to fangirl with their found family and shape culture through feminist action. So, you know that feeling that you get when you finish a chapter of a book or you watch something and the credits roll and you just have to talk to somebody about it like right now. That is who I am when I'm deep into a property that I am really loving and enjoying. And that's why I've created this podcast, to find other people who are just like that, who want to fangirl in the moment. You know me, I love to dissect these interesting power dynamics that we get over different properties. I like to call out how a trope is working or how it might not be working. I love to laugh about messy female friendships when people get it right. And I love to laugh about the men who write it and get it wrong. And I love to talk about how these stories connect back to our lives and influence us personally. Why do we love these stories? What is so moving about them? And that is what this space is really going to be for. So Too Femme, Too Furious is going to be the new official community home for the Femme and Furious podcast and the Femme and Furious community. It will be a place that is built for people who take their fangirling seriously, because I take my fangirling seriously, but also who want to take the feminist piece very seriously and want to create action and want to move forward. These are not separate things. Fangirls are some of the most active people on the internet. I don't know if you've ever met a fangirl. Have you ever told somebody who loves Taylor Swift that her music sucks? You're going to get a dissertation. Fangirls are already activated. They are already shaping culture. And so if we can just gather in one spot, we can actually effectively take the tagline of this podcast, which is Smash the Patriarchy one episode at a time, and go and do that out in the world. This is a space where pop culture obsessed girly pops can take real world action, where this idea of hot girls help isn't a bit or something that we say. It's something that we value and that we practice on this podcast and in our community space. So we're not just here to consume culture, although, hey, if you want to come into the community space because you want to fangirl over your favorite shadow daddy, please, by all means, come on in. There's space for you there. You don't have to be deep into the feminist action. If that's not your thing, if you just want a place to fangirl, I promise that that's in this space too. So I want you to think about this community space as your found family algorithm bubble. The space looks a little bit like a Facebook, but you're not going to have any MAGA nonsense on this platform. You're not going to have any ads. You're not going to have any rage bait, hopefully, and you're not going to have anyone's weird uncle commenting on how you look good in a cheeky bikini. Okay. You're just going to have the good parts of the internet, what community used to feel like and what it can feel like again if we just come together and we gather in these spaces. So let me tell you what's actually going on in this space because I've started to build it out. It's officially live today. You can go join it, but none of the fun bits are going to happen for 2 weeks. So you'll have 2 weeks to kind of get in, get acclimated, and then we'll start all of the stuff that we're talking about in here. First of all, there's a housekeeping tab. This is hard for me. I'm an indie podcaster. I have a lot of changes that sometimes need to be made on this podcast. In order to keep up with my schedule or to keep up with content. I'm not somebody who currently gets screeners or early access to properties. I'm reading things and watching things in real time with you guys and trying to churn out podcast content as fast as I can to get it to you. And I publish twice a week. So the housekeeping tab is going to be the home base. This is the place that I would suggest you turn your alerts on so that you're getting this directly into your inbox. This will have podcast updates. It's going to have ongoing conversations about what is going on in the community space. It's going to have polls. It's going to have monthly themes. All of the things that you need to know are always going to be in the housekeeping space, whether that's privately for the community or publicly on the podcast. Both of them will exist in that tab. Everything in this space is broken down by tab. So if you're looking for something specific, I promise you can get it. We will also have sections for TV Temptress. Okay. So if you're here because you're watching a TV show, you found us because you're watching Every Year After, which we're diving into after this, I promise you can find a tab with a thread just for that. There is Screen Queens. So if you're watching a movie and you need to deep dive, you can go over there. There's also Bookish Baddies, which we cover a lot of books on this podcast. And guess what? We're covering a lot of books this summer. And then there is additional tabs. So we have Hot Girls Help, which is where we will have mutual aids, resource sharing. This is a space that we can really build on the idea that community isn't just about the vibes, that it's about showing up for our community, about supporting our community. So if you need a recommendation, if you need a resource, if you need a hand, if you are looking for volunteers that live near you, all of that will exist over in Hot Girls Help. This is where you can offer your help. This is where you can find help. And then we have a share joy because honestly, our collective joy is a form of resistance. So this is the antidote tab. This is where you can post your pet tax. Okay, please post your pets. We want to see them. We want to see the baby. It's where you can post your weekly wins, small victories, cool things that you saw out in the world that made you feel good. This is where we can take a break from some of the heavy stuff that we might be watching or covering, take a break from the heaviness of the world, and we can just protect our joy and do it with intention. The Common Threads Book Club, which you've heard me talk about before, will now move and live in this space. It will be every third Wednesday of the month. Guess what? This month we're covering banned books. There's recommendations in there for you. There's a place to find a list of different banned books so that you can pick which one you would like to read. So this is a low effort book club for people to kind of come in. We can meet together once a month. There will be monthly brunches, which will be virtual monthly hangouts. We already have one booked. It's for July 23rd. It is going to be a pop culture court where you can air your grievances and we, the jury, people that are listening on, can vote on whether or not we think that you're innocent or guilty. So, for example, maybe you think a book is criminally overhyped. You can argue why in pop culture court. You can see if you go uncontested, and then we will be able to vote on it. So it's an interactive, fun space for us to do some more of the fangirling stuff. There will also be a cultural salon every month. So this will start in August. That way people have enough time to get into the community space and get acclimated and see what we're about without missing anything. But We will have monthly cultural salons where guest experts, whether they are writers, scholars, organizers, cultural critics, philosophers, activists, come in for live conversations that you can be a part of that go deeper than we can possibly go on the podcast about particular feminist issues. So over time, these salons will build into something bigger. They will be a resource library for people in this community who want to deepen their feminist lore. They want to learn, not just discuss. And all of this is organized for you in the school. So there is a calendar that you'll be able to see what community events are going on during the month. There's an app that you can download to be a part of the community so you never miss anything. You don't just have to be on your computer. There's courses. So every time we have a guest speaker on during our cultural salons, that will go into a course that is specific for those resources. It'll have the talk, it'll have the resources, and anything else that might need to get added into there. And it will all exist in a course that you can kind of digest at your leisure when you're ready for it. Every month, there will be a community zine. This goes into the entire ecosystem of the podcast, plus things that we can watch together in a fun theme that's specific just for the community. So in July, we're talking about liberation. There's some really cool TV recommendations, movie recommendations, and there will be discussion threads for all of that that exist on the community space for you guys to engage with that together. There will also be a monthly member spotlight. So if you want to be a member and you want to be spotlighted and tell people about the cool stuff that you're doing or who you are, that is all part of the zine. And then there's a community map. So you can find other Femme and Furious fans near you and you can connect in real life. You can create local podcast clubs, which I will help you do. There will be resources in that there will be resources to help you do so in the group. There will be found family online, but also found family out in the wild. So this is how your online community gets turned into ground action and real life places that you can go hang out. If you've been part of the Patreon, I will be reaching out to you directly. The Patreon is built so that you can get more of me. That's how Patreon operates. You can get the bonus content, the behind the scenes, all of that kind of stuff that exists on Patreon. But this space, school, which is now going to be our home and our hub for the podcast, is built for you to get more of each other. It's the difference between watching a show and, being in a friend group that watches it together. We get to do this together. So the school community, Two Femme, Two Furious, is a place for us to gather, for us to learn, and for us to grow, and to actually make waves in the feminist space that we say that we care about, so that we're affecting change that we want to see in the world. So come for the fangirling, stay for the found family, leave having actually changed the world and something around you in order to celebrate the launch of this new community space and our new community hub for this podcast. I'm giving away 3 free memberships. In order to be qualified to be part of this raffle, all you have to do is leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Cool. If you want bonus entries, you can share one of your favorite episodes on Instagram and tag the podcast Femme and Furious Pod in it. I will announce those winners on the podcast on July 10th. If you don't want to wait until then, guess what? Doors are open, $12 a month. You're getting tons and tons and tons of extra content and fun community over in there. So I know this is a little long, kind of a big announcement. I'm going to be talking about this on every podcast from now on. So be prepared to be invited into this community space multiple times. And now we'll dive into every year after.
All right, bookish baddies and chronic yearners. I am Julia Rose Portella. This is Femme and Furious. And before we dive into every year after, let us do some hot girl housekeeping. Hi, hello. By the time you listen to this, I'm on vacation. I will be walking the streets of Epic Universe for the first time in my life, even though I've done every other park. I have not been to Universal since they've opened Epic Universe. So I'll be doing that. I'm not active on social media right now. I'm just letting everybody know, hey, while I said that, if you're listening to this podcast and you like this podcast and you are like a geek on social media, like that's your thing, please send me a message. I would love to work with you. I would love to collaborate with somebody who would love to take over my social media. I simply cannot have it on my phone anymore. I have so many episodes of this podcast to record, and I have another podcast. It's called Third Eye View. I will tag that down in the show notes. I'm doing a lot creatively. I'm writing a book. I'm going on tour with like a keynote right now. So like, hey, hi, hello. There's just way too many things happening for me to be able to maintain the socials all on my own. So if that's your thing, come on down. Happy to have you. Other housekeeping notes. If you're looking for House of the Dragon content, I'm not going to leave you hanging. It's coming out Friday. So we have episode 3, which is Playing with Fire. It is directed by Jeff W. Bird, and it is written by John Stevens. So I'm going to break each episode down by sort of like the past and what happened and the present and what's going on, okay? So in 2013, this is the first time that Sam pushes Charlie into the lake. He finally wins this battle and he finally gets something over Charlie and he gets him into the lake. And as this like sort of opening montage is happening with Sam, by the way, like howling into the sky at this like victory that he has gained over his brother, is Percy writing a story in which she says she knew that none of them would survive. The lake would take them as it had taken the others. She accepted that as truth. So pretty fucking ominous, if you're asking me, whatever is going on with Percy and her experience of her descent into the underworld. Hey, hi, hello. If you like things about the descent into the underworld, I just did on my podcast, Third Eye View, an exploration of the journey and the descent into the underworld through tarot. So if you're interested in that, I've already tagged the show in the show notes. Just go and look up the Chariot episode. It's all there for you. We're having a good time over there in Tarot Land over on Third Eye View. So back to 2013, okay? Delilah is like, babe, Sam is HOT hot. And you, Percy, my darling, need to cash in on all these years of friendship. So here's sort of my double-edged sword. I think the show does a really good job of pulling in details that are significant to the readers, that are important for the readers to understand that they had read the material, right? And one of those things is that Percy is eating cotton candy ice cream. Is like a big talking point between her and Sam. Maybe not a big one, but like, hello, a talking point between her and Sam. And this moment where he licks her ice cream, you know, is sort of echoed in the future, not in the show, but in the book. And it's details like that, and her red bathing suit, and, you know, the blue Gatorade that are important for us as book readers. And yet it makes me so confused about what this story is doing, because it's pulling away from the integrity of the story, which is like Sam and Percy. There's so much happening with Delilah and Jordie and Chantal, like these characters who are mentioned and like maybe get some time on page, particularly for a character like Delilah. She gets some time on page, but Jordie really doesn't. Very rare little snippets of Jordie do we get. And Chantal is like a character that we think about, but we're not necessarily engaging a lot with. So the fact that there's like so much happening with these other characters who barely have any book time, and then this like confusing muddying of the integrity of the story between Charlie, Percy, and Sam is like something that I'm having a really hard time digesting, because I got that warm and fuzzy feeling when I saw the cotton candy ice cream, and I got that warm and fuzzy feeling when I saw him like run over and like lick it. But I'm having some conflict, so we'll move through it together as we go on this journey of these couple of episodes. So Sam and Charlie are having a similar conversation about Percy and Delilah, you know, separate from the girls. So the girls are looking at the boys and they're like, man, oh man, did those boys get hot. And the boys are looking at the girls, and Charlie is like, you need to hook up with Percy. If you don't, somebody else will. And Sam looks at him like, you wouldn't do that, right? And he's like, no, I'm not that much of an asshole. Like they have this sort of like spoken, unspoken conversation about the boundaries of Percy. And I think that this is interesting because the story has not set us up to have any of these gratifying moments of tension about Percy between Charlie and Sam, particularly because they skipped over the truth or dare kiss. So the fact that that kiss is not a pre-established thing, and the fact that that is not Percy's first kiss, and the fact that it's not a conversation that her and Sam have, that Sam just gets mad at the threat of Charlie doing this thing, but that he doesn't actually do it. And in the book, there is that moment when Charlie kisses her in Truth or Dare and turns to Sam and says, "You snooze, you lose." Like, he is trying to put Sam up to the test to like actually act on his feelings for Percy. So to like have these sort of echoes of tension that are rippling between the brothers about Percy kind of consistently since the beginning of the season, but for us to not really understand or have any grounding about where it's coming from seems just like a fabrication of the material in a way that I don't really understand why they're doing it, especially because they made Charlie older when they didn't have to. They decided not to do the first kiss in Truth or Dare, which they didn't have to. It's changing the structure of the drama, which isn't a bad thing, only I just don't know if I like it as much. And then so it's in this episode that we've got the Blair Witch and the Storm, which in the book is their first kiss and sort of their admission of their feelings to each other. So we see that Sam almost makes a move on Percy, but then backs away. And then in the morning, it seems like he's going to kiss her, and they're interrupted by Charlie. As the two of them go downstairs and confront Charlie, Charlie keeps pressing, like, "You're friends with benefits. I get it. You had your girlfriend sleepover," like all of this stuff. And Sam eventually like loses it. And he's like, "I would never do anything like that. It's Percy." Now that's his own denial of his own feelings about her. And then Percy's like rejection in all of this, where she's like, "Whatever, I'm going to go. Tell Sue whatever you want." And we hear Charlie be like, "Nice, bro. Like, what the hell? Like, what is wrong with you that you would say that?" And so Charlie is always going to be somebody that sort of pushes Sam to act on his feelings because that's who Charlie is. Charlie is much more in touch with his emotional fluidity and wants Sam to sort of follow in his footsteps. Only Charlie in the TV show is almost like a younger brother. Like, he's almost immature. The way that he talks and the language that he uses and the shit that he says, even as an adult, as a 30-year-old, is just very immature. It's giving like younger brother energy. So Delilah and Percy sort of debrief this situation with Sam, that Sam didn't want to make a move. And then they go to the bonfire where Delilah meets Jordie for the first time. Jordie is instantly smitten with Delilah, but this is also the first time that Jordie meets Percy. And he's like, "You're Percy? You are the girl that ate 15 pierogies in one sitting?" And Percy's face just completely falls. Like 10 seconds ago, she was so excited that Sam told his friends about her. She's so over the fact that Sam just consistently is putting her in this category of friend. And it's in this moment where she thinks that Sam has talked about her, that she's getting this confidence boost, that maybe she is misreading the situation, that maybe Sam does have these feelings for her, only for her to find out that he's told his friends that she shovels pierogies into her mouth, that she's like, okay, well, Sam just really maybe doesn't see me that way. And so then we've got this Jordie and Delilah conversation that's unfolding. Delilah is just patiently waiting for Charlie to show up for her to be able to get into his eyesight. And the perfect opportunity would have been to leave this conversation either way, because the second that Jordie was like, "Do you want to hear how I won regionals last week?" I also would have been bowing out of this conversation, because no, I don't. No, I don't want to hear about how you won regionals last week. Sorry. At least at this point, he's still in high school, so it's good. But it's like, hey, by the time we're like 30-year-old adults and you're telling me that you want to talk about when you won regionals in high school, I'm trying to figure out how I can escape the date. So he says, like, "Do you want to talk about basketball?" And she's basically like, "No, Charlie is here. Bye." Charlie barely notices her. He's kind of like, "Aren't you cold?" And like brushes past her. And so there's like so much unrequited love in this show. I kind of like what they've done with Delilah and Charlie, only I don't really understand it. Definitely Delilah is somebody who's like boy crazy in the book. But she's got this sort of feminist streak in the book where she's like, we don't sacrifice our dreams for boys. We don't do all of this stuff for boys. Like, it's just a boy. she's kind of constantly reminding Percy that like boys come and go. And she's like, sure, you like this boy, but not as much as your summer boy. Like she doesn't even name Sam most of the time. She just calls them the summer boys. Like those are the boys we hang out with in the summer, that we hook up with in the summer. These are the boys that we hook up with during the year. These are the boys that we do this with and do that with. Like she's sure has like a long-term boyfriend in the book, but she's definitely a little bit more boy crazy. And she also therefore is a little bit more understanding that boys come and go and it's not that big of a deal. So the fact that they've made this like unrequited love that Delilah has for Charlie for no particular reason. Charlie's not really ever hanging out with them, at least not in the way that he is in the book where they're constantly spending time with him. So we're not really ever seeing much of a relationship building between Charlie and Delilah. We're seeing a lot more of it with Sam and Percy, but like I would even say like we're not even seeing that much of Sam and Percy's stuff. We're seeing so much unrequited love, and it doesn't really make sense to me why Delilah would have these strong unrequited feelings because she's not really getting to spend that much time with Charlie. She just thinks he's hot, which is fine, but that doesn't mean that that's like the long lost love of your life or like something that you need to wait years and years for, especially when you know that you're hot and you're beautiful, which she says in the mirror. She's like, I'm hot. He should notice me. So sorry, Delilah. You picked the wrong tree. Sam then admits that he took a girl to the spring fling. And then Delilah sits down, and Sam, being like the gentleman that he is, as soon as Delilah's like, I'm cold, he offers up his jacket. And this is just like the final straw for Percy. She's not really mad at Delilah here. She's just more like, literally, Sam will see anybody else this way except for fucking me. And so she gets up and she goes to kiss the guy at the keg. The guy's like, can I have your name? And she's like, no, but I'll do you one better. I'll give you a kiss. And she turns around to make eye contact with Sam, that she's going to do this thing, kisses the guy. And then immediately after she kisses him, turns around and Sam's no longer looking. And she once again feels dejected that like she was doing this thing for a spectacle for Sam to be provoked by his jealousy, only to find that he's not looking at her, which of course he was. But she doesn't see that at all. And so the next day they end up having this conversation where he says, hey, I was jealous watching you kiss that guy. I don't want to feel jealous. I think that we should like give this a go. And he starts to like lean in to kiss her right after he tells her that he feels safe with her, that she's like so much more than just his best friend. He's like, whatever this is, he doesn't even define it as like a friendship. He's like, whatever we're doing here, it's more than just a friendship. And so he's ready at this moment to sort of take this chance. And he goes in to kiss her. And she is the one that pulls away and says that she doesn't want to mess it up. Once again, wondering why on fucking God's green earth we have decided to change this detail from the book. What are we doing? I don't understand. All I can say is, and God forgive me, I'm not super religious. I'm sorry I just mentioned God twice, but please forgive me when I say this episode was both written and directed by a man. Okay, with that being said, the core tension of the book is the fact that Percy feels that her feelings are unrequited for Sam. So they have their first kiss during their sleepover. And this is after she has admitted to Sam multiple times throughout the year that like she's dating this guy, but she likes somebody else. And by the time that they get to this point in the book where Percy sleeps over, he's like, who is it that you want to kiss? And she's like, please don't make me say it out loud. And he's like, just tell me, Percy. Just tell me. And she's like, I think you know. And he's like, I want to hear you say it. I want to hear you say that you want me. So at this point, like the tension that is leading them to this first kiss is the fact that neither one of them has truly admitted that they have feelings for each other. And they're trying to figure out how to approach the other person about these feelings that they're having for each other, that it's turned from a friendship to something that's far more romantic. Okay, great. By the time they kiss, where she's like, I only want to kiss you, and he's like, I only want to kiss you too, they're sort of moving past the fact that they've dated other people, that he took other girls to this dance, like whatever. They're moving past that and they're deciding to kiss each other, only for Sue to be there in the morning when both of them wake up and being like, if we're having sleepovers, if we're already at this point in the relationship, we need to have a serious conversation. She says to Sam, next time Percy wants to stay over, you stay on the couch. Sorry, but that's the rules. And she says, you know, you guys are young. You have time to figure things out. She says to Percy, like, hey, you need to take no shit from any boys, especially my sons. Like, don't let my sons be trying to pull a fast one over on you. You follow your own path and you make sure that you're treated with respect. And so they have this conversation. And after that conversation, Sam takes Percy to that spot that we see with the little chair. And he says to her, like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, they kind of convolute it in different episodes. So we get that conversation a little bit later. But there is this moment, earlier in the book where Sam appears to be just about to kiss Percy and she's like preparing for it. And then he's like, you're my best friend. I don't want to mess that up. And he's the one that pulls away. By the time we get to the core tension, we have a deep understanding that Percy, who is highly anxious, has been feeling rejected by Sam since the time that they were 13 years old. The first time that they play Truth or Dare and Sam doesn't immediately go in to kiss her. So she's been dealing with these feelings of having romantic feelings for Sam and wanting to be in a relationship with Sam and wanting to be physical with Sam and feeling consistently like Sam doesn't want the same thing as her. And so she like constantly is tamping down her feelings. And that's what drives her to the main tension point of the story. Like, I'm not going to give spoilers if you haven't watched it at this point. We're just covering episodes 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, it just seems like a weird thing to have Percy be the one to pull away and being like, I don't want to mess up our friendship, when she deliberately tried to make Sam jealous so that he would act on his feelings for her the night before. The writing just doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense for these characters and the arc that they're on. I realize that they're trying to drum up some drama between these two characters, but as a book reader, it's just falling really flat. And it's taking a story that is so nuanced and complex and is diving into the multitudes of relationships and particularly like the multitudes of women and their experience in relationships. And really simplifying it to something that is, quite frankly, seemingly turning Percy into a type of a villain, in some kind of way, this sort of like femme fatale in a type of way. And I don't really like it. And we'll continue to talk about this as we come through. That doesn't mean I didn't like the show, but I've been hard pressed to like sit down and rewatch it because the vibes are there, but the story is just like on a weird trajectory for where it's at right now. So let's jump to the present. All right. So in the present, we now have Percy has taken over the obit. We don't really get a reason for this until later when Sam is talking to Charlie and he's like, why are you having her do this? And he's like, well, Taylor took a pass at it, but it wasn't that great. Yeah, shocker. Sam then defines Sue by her strength, which I thought was really lovely. And Percy says to Sam, hi, I'm intimidated by your girlfriend. She's literally perfect. Again, a weird choice that they make from the book, where in the book, she is a lawyer. She's very cold. So they've sort of like shuffled around the parts that we get. And so like this character in Chantal is perhaps a warmer version, but like what Taylor is supposed to be. Taylor is supposed to be sort of a cold lawyer who like doesn't fit in at Barry's Bay. One of the things that Percy notices about her in the book is she's like, she does not belong here. She's wearing like a crisp white pantsuit and she's like, meanwhile, I'm drenched in boob sweat and like half drunk. So another thing that's a big change from the book is like Sam immediately breaks up with Taylor. Day one. The second that Percy comes back to town and he turns around and he says, you came home. By the time that Taylor finds them, Taylor drops Percy off at her hotel. And between them driving home and Sam coming back to Percy in the next morning, they have broken up. So now Chantal in the story is somebody who works with Percy. So they work together in their design magazine. The fact that we have Taylor, who is like a doctor, a children's surgeon, all of these things that are just indicative that she's like a good person and not cold and unfeeling like she's supposed to be, opposite Sam, is why Percy is intimidated. And so this is true to the book, where when Percy looks at Taylor and Sam, she's like, they make sense together. They're like a power couple. So she thinks the same thing kind of here, even though she doesn't say it, but she said, I'm intimidated by your girlfriend. But Sam does a really good job here of making Percy's job feel important. He's like, as somebody who's just lost somebody, I think that what you do is pretty fucking phenomenal. And this is what you wanted to be doing. You wanted to be writing. And Percy's like, yeah, but not like this, you know? So this is such a lovely conversation that I think the two of them have. And the fact that Sam does not undermine what Percy does or think that something is more valuable or important makes her feel important in this moment and makes like what she's just done for him feel so significant. Breaks, I think, some of the intimidation. And that's because he loves her, you know? We've got a wonderful line. Charlie Florek, a man literally running from his emotions, which I was cracking up at. And then we've got Delilah, who is struggling with her feelings around marriage, that she even says, like, I feel like I had a starter marriage, and that she feels like she's failing and that this is humiliating. Like, what are people going to think? She's worried about how the town is going to perceive her. And I think this is one of the really cool feminist threads that we could pull at on this journey that we're with these characters. You know, we've talked about it before on this podcast, but I'll say it again. The way that society is structured, young girls are taught to dream about their marriage and their wedding from the time that they're little. I have like long let go of dreams and visions of like the marriage that I thought that I would have when I was a young child. But it's sad to be like, wow, I've been thinking about this thing my literal entire life. I'm glad that I'm not married. I'm glad that I'm in my 30s at this point and I've watched other people get married. I'm glad that I've seen other examples of marriage. I'm glad that I've watched other people that literally have been the bridesmaid and never the bride. That has worked to my benefit because now I'm like, I have not just fallen into a pattern where I'm just going through the motions of this thing. And so like this concept of marriage and being in this like domestic position that women are consistently put into, the fact that Delilah would be experiencing this shame over the fact that she's potentially getting divorced, that she's separated, that her marriage is failing, that she feels that she had a quote unquote starter marriage is like a canonically feminine thing. I don't think you hear men talking about this as much. I think for men, there's less shame involved because men are not taught to be thinking about their weddings and their marriage from the time that they are young boys. They're taught to be thinking about other things. Well, I don't know. If you're a man and you're listening to this show, I would love to know at what point you became aware of the fact that you were supposed to start thinking about marriage. And honestly, if you're a woman and you're listening to the show or you identify as a woman and you're listening to the show, I would like to know when you became aware of the time that you were supposed to be thinking about your wedding. I literally cannot think of a single time in my life that I wasn't actively having somewhere in the back of my mind a thought about my wedding. I'm not saying I would like sit there and dream about it all day, but like the fantasy was sort of always percolating in the back of my head. So I think that it's really interesting that we have this, you know, experience with Delilah here saying that. So we've got sort of like a love triangle thing that keeps happening with Charlie, with Percy and Sam. And then we've got this now like love triangle that's unfolding between Chantal, Jordie, and Delilah. I literally have in capital letters in my notes, okay, wait a goddamn fucking second. I thought Chantal and Jordie were going to get together, but it's Jordie and Delilah. Hello, Whiplash. Now it makes sense why he would call Delilah first over Sam. I don't understand what they're doing with this writing. I also think that the drama that they keep drudging up is hard to digest with like the characters' actions and like their words. They're not aligning. So the fact that Charlie then tells Sam to be careful with Percy and he's like, some things are better left in the past for everyone's sake. Charlie, if you fucking felt that way, at what point do you think that maybe you shouldn't have picked up the phone and told Percy what was going on? Maybe you should have just said, sorry that these were my mom's dying wishes for Percy to be here, but I don't think that's a good idea and it's not going to be good for me and it's not going to be good for Sam. And since this is our mom and she's no longer here, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to honor this request. He's the one who calls her. He's the one who implores her to come to the memorial. Then he's the one that's like acting like Sam is the one that's making this awful decision when Charlie is the one who called her in the first place. So speaking of Charlie, Delilah then breaks up with him. She's like, we're done here. Charlie says that he has also been thinking about her for the past 15 years. And I just felt like, no, you haven't. This is a fucking play to get what you want right now, which is to have sex with a woman that is hot and sexy and in front of you and available. okay, Charlie. And he knows that there is something manipulative in this because he's like, you weren't the only one who was thinking about it for the past 15 years. And the way that Delilah just like turns into almost girlish, where she's like, you were thinking about me? Like the way that it's so unrequited on her side and Charlie knows that and uses it to his advantage is like, ew, skeevy. I don't like it. And like, not my Charlie. Hashtag not my Charlie, not my book Charlie, who is one of my favorite book boyfriends. I love him so much. Charlie, I just don't think would do something like this, but you know, the show Charlie is on an arc. And so we are where we are. I also have in capital letters, sorry, I was not super high on this episode. I had a lot of qualms with it. What is the point of this passport malfunction? Why can't they just have Chantal stay because Percy needs her? Why, number one, do we have to make it a crossed bordered thing? The fact that the story is taking place in Barry's Bay in Toronto keeps the story central in Canada, which makes sense. It's only a couple hours away. No one has to fly or anything like that. It's just like a quick 3-hour drive up to Barry's Bay. The fact that Percy has to cross a border every time she wants to go to their lake house seems a little odd. But okay, what is the actual fucking point of this passport malfunction? First of all, I guess it's to get maybe Chantal and Charlie together to have a conversation in which I feel like we could have done this in other ways. I don't understand what the point of this drama is. It's like unnecessary drama and a focus on Chantal when like all I want to be focused on is Percy and Sam. I love this line where she's like, I look old enough to have a son, and Charlie literally eyes her up and down and then up again. And he's like, no, but otherwise, why would you be doing Postmates? And then he's like, so you're ordering food for a grown ass man? Meanwhile, Charlie is the most immature man I've ever met in my entire fucking life. Anyway, he goes on to say that if he ordered food for somebody, they'd mistake it for something that he's not being willing to give, because now he's trying to say like, hey, me and you, Chantal, we're the same. We both are really ambitious and we both don't want to be bogged down by commitment. So if I ordered somebody food, they would know that that's something that is going deeper than what I may be able to offer somebody long term. Which begs the question again, like, what the fuck was he just saying to Delilah then? What was he doing with Delilah there? So, which is what makes me think that he is spinning a line to get laid. But Chantal, who has chemistry with literally everybody on the show, Chantal is honestly my favorite character, which is bizarre considering that she's not really a character in the books, but I fucking love Chantal. Every time she's on screen, I'm the most interested in her. And I'm honestly, like, out of all of the love stories that are unfolding here, most interested in Chantal and Jordie. So Chantal literally says, like, what a strikingly original philosophy from a man. And I just thought this was like, yes, queen, we love this line. I want this printed on a t-shirt. Being honest, in my cohort, we're talking about merch this week, and I had launched this podcast 101 episodes ago by the time you're listening to this. I had launched this podcast with stickers, which I have and I almost never promote, mostly because I knew I was moving abroad and I wasn't sure what the process was going to be there. I'm like 90% positive that I'm going to start getting into merch again. And one of the things that I think we need to have is like, what a strikingly original philosophy from a man, like XOXO Chantal. This is a perfect shirt. This is a perfect line in this TV series. And I love Chantal so much. Also, Charlie trying to draw this line between him and Chantal, where he's essentially calling her selfish, is like low-key fucked up because here she is supporting her best friend when Charlie has already stated that he resents Sam because Sam came home instead of letting Charlie pay for somebody to take care of their mom. So he wasn't here to do it. I'm kind of like Sam right now. I'm like, I resent you for not being there for Sue Florek. She's the farthest thing from selfish. She's put everything that's important to her on hold because her best friend needs her. And that's the difference between these two people, at least at this moment in time. So then Sam and Percy have their like little date to make pierogies. Charlie goes so far as to say, dude, every woman knows what the deal is. I might not be into commitment, but I don't hurt people. And Chantal is like, maybe you don't intend to hurt people, but people can still get hurt. Hi, hello. On this podcast, I talk about intent versus impact all the fucking time. And this is why. This conversation is just an entire foreshadow for everything that is to come. Maybe you don't intend to hurt people, but people can still get hurt. That is like a line that is going to be critical for us to review and come back to as we go into next podcast episode where we would talk about the end of the series. So the car breaks down, right? Charlie is obviously grieving. And it's coming out through this truck. He's like, my mom just wanted to fix everything no matter what. If we had a hole in our jean, she'd be like, patch it up. If the oven's 20 years old and it stops breaking, fix it up. Chantal so kindly is like, she was a single mom running a business. Maybe we should just give her some grace. Because shout out to Chantal because she is a girl's fucking girl and we love her on this podcast. I am Chantal's #1 stan. I love her so much. She's my favorite character in the show, honestly. So we're having this conversation, right? Where she's like, maybe it was because your mom was a single mom. And Charlie is like, no, could never be that. It was all about character, which I'm sure it was. As a girly pop who had a single mom and was raised by a single mom, I could tell you right now, probably was more resourcefulness because she was a single fucking mom than it had to do with giving you character and resilience. But okay, Charlie, you manly man over there, that he just like absolutely has to take his shirt off, show us his washboard abs in order for him to fix this car, but fine. Suddenly, Chantal, who is in a dire rush to get across the border and to get home and yada yada, is like, no, it's fine. I'll wait hours for you to fix this car. I don't fucking understand the point of whatever the fuck is supposed to be happening with the passport situation. We could have gotten all of this in another way without it having to be this passport rush situation that is going on. But he's afraid to disappoint his mom posthumously. So, that tells us something about Charlie and his mommy issues right there. So let's cut to Percy and Sam. Percy's getting all dressed up for her date at the tavern with Sam. He's like, you look good. You look sexy in this dress. Now, this is more of the dress that I was envisioning her to be in when she shows up at Barry's Bay, because in the book, she shows up in this dress and she's like, I am sweating. My dress is sticking to me, like all of this stuff. She kind of rejects the compliment. He goes to kiss her and Delilah walks in and literally judges them. Ew, it is the pot calling the kettle fucking black. Sorry, Delilah, I don't like you in this particular moment. Let my fam kiss. Let them kiss. Let them kiss. Just let those lips touch. We've been waiting for a kiss that has not happened yet. And it's been 3 episodes. I'm just wanting their lips to touch. Just a little. Now, Percy, who we will learn next episode doesn't like to run, really does have a flight instinct. She is constantly running away from Sam. So she does apologize to Sam, but then she immediately dips the fuck out of there. She's not spending more than like 10 seconds with Sam in each of these moments. Like they swim across the lake to the raft. As soon as they sit down, she's like, well, I'm going to go, which was like, what was the point of that then? If they are not even going to have a conversation or like hang out for a little bit or like deepen their relationship at this point. They go to make the pierogies. They're having this moment. Literally, it's slow motion for us, but think about what's happening in real time, okay? In real time, all that's happening is he is tying the apron around her body. That's taking 20 to 30 seconds tops, okay? Before Delilah comes in and then she's like, I'm sorry, I can't be here. I gotta go. I just think that they're not spending nearly enough time together for us to be understanding that they're developing their feelings, or their feelings are coming back to them in the future. But okay. Fine. I think the show does lust really well. It seems like these characters are all lusting after each other, but I don't know that I feel that these characters have enough substance between their relationships for it to be love. So then Percy calls Chantal and she says she needs to hitch a ride home with her literally right away. She's like, I'm hoping that we can leave like pronto stat right now, or I'm going to end up, doing something that ruins my life all over again. And then we get the introduction to this estate lawyer who says, I'm hoping that you won't leave because you are in Sue's will. Cool. Episode 4, Anatomy of a Romance. It's directed by Tara Nicole Wire. Hopefully that's how you say it. And written by Amy Reardon. Last episode directed and written by a man. This episode directed and written by women. And even though I just wrote the notes for this, I don't remember if I like this episode more or less. So we will see how it goes as we dive into this episode. If I like the writing a little bit better, if it's by a woman. we will practice the principles of this podcast in real time. So summer 2014, we start with the couch to 5K, the lazy girl's guide to not dying, where Percy says the funniest line ever. She goes on both the couch and the lazy girl in this scenario. They go for their run. As soon as they get back, Percy is like, I'm going into the lake. She starts getting undressed. Now in the book, she takes off her shorts and she's wearing a thong. And Sam is like, whoa, you have affronted my virginal eyes. I'm being dramatic, but Sam is basically like, whoa, Percy, hello. Like, you can't just like show me your bare ass without me, getting hard. In which case, like, she dives in the water and she's like, are you coming? And he's like, please turn around and give me a second because I'm having an issue. So it's like this moment where Percy recognizes in that summer that like maybe she is affecting Sam the same way, especially since they had kissed, the summer before in the book and had this whole conversation where Sam is like, I don't want to be with you right now. Like, I want us to go for all of the things that we want in life. So we're getting these like the same vibe, but different summers that they're happening in the show. So that will happen this summer that we talk about right here in summer 2014. So Sam in the show, chronic yearner that he is, watching her get undressed kind of like through peaky fingers. He's like, puts his hands up in like modesty for about 10 seconds before he's like, no, I'm just going to stare at this girl that I am into. They're in the water together. Of course, anytime that we're in the water, high, sexy, steamy, good stuff. Percy admits to Sam as they're laying and drying out on the raft, she's like, I have to tell you something and I don't think you're going to like it. And now Sam is like bracing for impact. He's like, does she have a boyfriend? Does she, what is going on? And she's like, I hate running. Then she says to him, well, I like the idea that I'm out of my head. And then she comes up with this idea of swimming across the lake. Here's why this doesn't vibe with me. Once again, a central tension point of the book is the fact that Charlie sees, witnesses, and understands Percy in a way that Sam does not. Okay? In the book, it is Charlie who acknowledges Percy first. He's the one that sees her laying out on her dock. He's the one who jumps in for the first kiss. He's the one who is constantly, pushing Sam to like act on his feelings for Percy, or like multiple times will be like, when you realize who the better brother is, he flirts with Percy. Like, he is constantly kind of ribbing at her, but in a sexual way or with a sexual connotation in the book. And it is in this moment when Sam decides to take Percy running that Percy does not say, I dislike running. Charlie is the one who's like, first of all, Sam, the fact that our dad died from a heart attack doesn't mean that you need to drag Percy out with you because you're afraid of dying of a heart attack, number one. So let's just get that clear. Then he's like, Percy hates running. And Sam's like, no, she doesn't. And Percy is just trying to like melt into the background. Like, she doesn't want to have this confrontation with Sam. She wants to please Sam. She's a Sam people pleaser. And Sam is like, no, she doesn't. And she's like, I don't love it. Like, I like the part where I stop for the day, And then Charlie is the one who's like, you should swim across the lake. You would be great at swimming. And that's what sparks up this idea for her to be like, yeah, I had always thought about swimming across the lake. It had always seemed like this big thing that I really wanted to do. And Charlie is the one that offers to train with her. Now, Sam is the one that does train with her and takes her up on it, and they develop this routine. But Charlie is the one who sees something about Percy that Sam is just not willing to see in the book, that she doesn't like the same thing that he likes. And so the fact that like Charlie doesn't have this idea here, that it's not born from Charlie witnessing something about Percy, sort of cheapens it to me a little bit, even though it's sort of, I guess, a nice feminist take on the fact that we get a woman being like, I don't like this thing and I do want to do this thing and that's what I'm going to do. And then Sam obviously being there to support her. So we get a nice montage then of her writing and in the super creative zone and also swimming and in her exercise zone. And we love it for Percy. So she makes her trek across the lake where, just like the book, she is looking at Sam and she is like, he's so pretty. Wait, did I just say that out loud? Such a good moment. I thought she did a great job with this. And then Sam is like, I'm proud of you. And she's like, I'm pretty freaking proud of me too. And I loved that for her as well. I loved that there was this moment where she is acknowledging that she's done something so incredible. In the past, summer 2014, we also get the anatomy lesson, which I think anybody who is a fan of the book was like eagerly anticipating this scene where in the book she has broken up with Mason. She has decided that she needs to put Sam out of his misery. It is during this summer in the book that she brings Mason to the lake house, and that Sam attempts to kiss her because he's jealous. So finally, after basically being like, I haven't thought about Mason at all, decides to break up with him and then goes over to Sam's house and provokes him. She's like, I want to do this thing now. So we have this moment where she kisses Sam. She initiates this, moment. And I think that that's fair considering that in the show, they have essentially had her be the one that's pulled away from Sam, not the other way around. So I think that this is, a nice little moment here that it's their first kiss, and it's coming after this sort of like swimmer's high that she has from going across the lake. And so, you know, in the book, this happens the summer earlier, but here in the show, we have the conversation that Sam and Percy have with Sue, where Sue says, Sam, people fall in love and have sex, even your mother. And I know how close you two are. This is not just something casual. It's so much more than that. Then she goes on to say, sometimes falling in love can make you walk away from your dreams, right? So Sue is clearly talking about herself. Sue in the book is like notoriously young, got pregnant young. Percy, who has older parents, like her mom at one point is basically like that girl had those boys right after high school. And her father was like, it's different up here. Life is different on the lake. So she's talking about herself here. She had Sam and Charlie early into her life when she was very young. And she obviously had to walk away from some of the dreams that she had in order to be a mother and then be a wife to Sam's father and to now own this business in the tavern. So yikes. It's pretty clear that Sam is so deeply impacted by this speech, which is also true in the books, which I really like. So they're kind of snuggling. It's like the last dog days of summer. And then Sam sort of is like leaning as far a fucking way as possible as he can from Percy and tells her that he's been thinking about them. And he goes on to have this conversation where he's like, I don't want to screw everything up. I don't know how to do any of this. You're going away for an entire year. I have to get an academic scholarship. Like he's going through all of the lists and the reasons why they shouldn't be together. And Percy's like, okay, you're an asshole, and leaves, and then goes and immediately gets a boyfriend. So let's go into the present. Sam gets a text from Taylor, who is not going to be there for a reading of the will. So in the present, Chantal tells Percy that she is very brave for coming to reconcile her relationship with Sue and put this part of her life to rest and facing the past. And so they go to the reading of the will, in which Taylor has already texted Sam that she will not be there. And we discover that the estate is being left to the boys, but the tavern is being left to Percy. Couple things. Number one, in the book, the tavern is left to Julian, who it's like ambiguous at best whether or not Sue and Julian were in a romantic relationship. Either way, Julian is like a part of the family. He's another member. He works in the kitchen. Sue usually works up front. The boys and Percy kind of go back and forth depending on the day, depending on the job. So the tavern is left to Julian. So it's kind of being kept in the family to a certain degree. The boys are just deciding not to run it because Sam is a doctor and Charlie lives in Toronto and works in Toronto in the story. So true that it does not stay to the boys either way, and true that they don't want it. Weird that in these stories that Amazon Prime decides to adapt, particularly I'm also looking at The Summer I Turned Pretty, that these mothers are posthumously fucking weird. Now, if she would have written a letter and explained why she was making this decision or left something to Sam or had discussed it with either one of her sons beforehand, it would be a little less weird. The estate attorney tells us that this clause has been there since 2021. Okay. So it's been many years that she has added this to the will, 5 years ago that she added this to the will, and yet like leaves no explanation. So I'm kind of confused about why these moms do it. Like, at least when Susanna died in The Summer I Turned Pretty, she left all of these children letters to explain and understand some of the things that she was doing. Not only is it weird, it's like absolutely unhinged behavior from Sue to not tell anybody about it and to not leave any sort of explanation and just think that this is going to go over fine. So even if Charlie hadn't called, and honored Sue's wishes to call Percy to come, Percy would have been contacted because they would have discovered in real time that she was left the tavern. I actually think that is more interesting to get Percy to come home to Barry's Bay than, for example, having Charlie call her and then being like, Sam, watch out. Don't like spend too much time with Percy, even though I'm the one that called her. Like waiting until episode 4 to give us this information when they could have given it to us at episode 1. And that's the reason that she is coming back into this place. Like, and then maybe later having a conversation where Charlie was like, you want to know what? My mom told me to call you, but because of everything that's gone down, I decided that that wasn't a good idea. Now look, like fate has brought you back to us anyway. I think that's almost a more interesting story to tell and giving us a different type of drama instead of having Percy show up. She has no real purpose, keeps avoiding and making things weird with Sam, doesn't really want to spend any time or talk to Charlie, has no real relationship with Delilah, who's been living there. Jordie pretends not to know her. Like, it's so fucking weird the way that she shows up and the way that everyone responds to her. Like, this would have almost been better if, like, it was delivered to the boys in real time that their estate was being left or the tavern was being left to Percy, and then using that information to bring Percy back into the conversation. I think that would have been way more interesting and still unhinged, but like unhinged behavior from Sue Florrick to just leave the tavern to Percy here. But less unhinged than like whatever the hell has been going on up until this point. So obviously Charlie's upset. He was planning to sell the tavern to Delilah. Sam is upset because he is upset. Doesn't want it to be left to Percy for whatever reason, even though he clearly is in love with Percy and keeps trying to forge these moments where they are having a deeper connection. Like, I don't really understand how we get to the place where they were last night, where Sam was about to kiss her, to the place where they are today, where Sam is blowing past her like, I don't have time for you. I need to talk to my brother. Okay, fine. And then Chantal being a fucking boss because Percy is like in shock and she keeps denying this to both boys. And Chantal is a boss and she's like, my client is in shock and is not rescinding this property. This is not a formal, rescinding of the property. I also love the mention of like kind of COVID here by Chantal. She's like, a lot of really weird things happened in 2021. Tiger King, the whipped coffee trend, the word chuggy. Respectfully, these were all pretty much 2020, but I digress. By 2021, we were watching, the Capitol be stormed. So, but do I think that the spirit of this line is very funny? Yes, I fucking do. Percy says, I can't get Sam's face out of my head. It was so full of contempt. And again, why? Sam just wanted to be with her last night. Sam was willing to put her in these positions again and again and again where he is seemingly just about to kiss her, just about to make a move, or just about to say something, only for Percy to be the one that kind of flees and runs away and be like, not again. And then to say like Sam resents her or is holding her in contempt for a decision that Sue made that Percy had no choice in is just like, again, a little bit weird. But again, grief does weird things to people. I'm not judging Sam for actually having those feelings. So Charlie's basically like, it's not fair that mom made this major decision and then completely blindsided us after he has made a major decision about the tavern in planning to sell it to Delilah and blindsiding Sam. So Sam being like, yeah, I'm not thrilled that Sue left it to my ex-girlfriend, but like Percy is so much more than that to their family. And multiple times already throughout the course of the show, they've said that she's like family. Meanwhile, Delilah completely wants to change the tavern, make it into this like bohemian chic exclusive place for rich people. And Percy is upset about that because she loves the tavern and she wants to maintain the integrity of the tavern instead of seeing everything get turned into this soulless McMansion, which, was a funny conversation that they have. But true, right? So this conversation that the girlies have over brunch, Delilah, Chantal, and Percy, which by the way, there is no better girly activity than brunch. Loved seeing this. Loved seeing them have their little cocktails, a little nosh. It's bright and airy and sunny. We've got summer vibes going on. We are doing girl talk. Like, this is peak girlhood to me, and I love it. It is after a few drinks at brunch that they decide to go break into Percy's old summer home that is up for demolition. And Delilah is thrilled when Chantal calls Delilah one of them. So this, brunch-esque vibe continues into this space in the abandoned house where Percy says that her life is one bad decision after the next and that she is still in love with Sam, or maybe she's just in love with the idea of him. And so she's like kind of noodling on her internal experience right now. Delilah admits that her and Whit are separated and she's trying out a Kyle Mauricio. She's trying out a Kyle Mauricio situation. Now, this is very funny if you're like, who is this person? By the way, it's two people. It's Kyle Richards and Mauricio. I don't know his last name, but they are from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. They have been separated since 2023. So she is letting us know a little bit more information about her, that she watches that TV show and that she knows who they are. Chantal says that she doesn't want to get married and that she's afraid that she won't meet the expectations because she loves work so much and she doesn't really want to share her life with somebody in the way you're expected to in a marriage. And Percy here, to a fault, is kind of like a lover girl number one. So she's like, no, Chantal, that's not true. You absolutely love being with Drew. I've seen it. You're so in love. I love it for you. And it's like, no, she doesn't. She maybe doesn't want these things. And like maybe love and romance and a marriage aren't the only thing that women should and can aspire to. And so the fact that we have this real nuanced woman in Chantal who doesn't maybe want all the fluff of a marriage and doesn't necessarily need it in order to feel successful in her life or fulfilled within herself is so important. We're getting these like different shades of women. You have Percy who like doesn't have the career that she wants. And so she feels majorly unfulfilled. And she's kind of, as we know from the books, like holding herself in purgatory because of everything that's happened with Sam. And then we have Delilah, who's like, I really liked being married, but like, I'm not succeeding at it. And like, what does that say about me as a woman? Like all of these different shades about like the pressure that it is to be a woman, particularly a modern quote unquote woman, and that we're getting these different experiences through these different women. I really love that. So Charlie and Sam then have a conversation about Sue, whereas like Sam sort of romanticizes Sue and who she was in their life. Charlie tells Sam that when their dad died, Sue fell into a massive depression where she would not even leave bed, and that Charlie did like everything that he could to hide it from Sam. And so Sam feels guilty that he missed this. Like he doesn't realize that Charlie was doing the grocery shopping and that Charlie was doing all of these things to ensure that Sam was staying on track while Sue was getting over this massive depression. And Charlie says that it's his job to protect Sam and that Charlie is angry with Sue about all of the stuff that happened in their past. So I really love that this conversation also gives us different shades of Sue. Like both of these things can be true. She was a woman who was formidable and who possessed an incredible amount of strength, as we know. And also, she is the woman that Charlie knows who was so massively depressed and grief ridden that she couldn't even run her life and that Charlie had to do that. And so like the fact that these women do still get to have shades of nuance in this story is important to me, but the fact that they've like transitioned the way that this has happened across the story from the book is somehow strange and weird. Though not in this particular circumstance. So we go back to the girls where they say, we need more love in the world, especially as women. If we don't have each other's back, then who will? And Delilah is saying this as she is getting her hair braided. So again, like these rituals of girlhood, having your hair braided by your best friend, like it's so beautiful and I love it. So then the cops show up and Chantal and Delilah make it out of there, seemingly fine for no particular reason that they would get out of there any faster, but Percy doesn't because she's trying to rescue all of her old stories and she gets caught. Sam is the one that bails her out. Percy then goes berserk on Sam. She's just frankly had enough. She calls him out on their swim at the lake. She calls him out on the quasi-date situation with the pierogies. And then she says, you're always there reeling me in and pulling me back. The actual physical quote is, I'm so tired of being jerked around by you. You reel me in, then jerk away. I always thought you were my constant in my life when we were young, but you're not at all. I never know where I stand with you. You want me, and then you don't. My heart can't take it anymore. It's confusing and hurtful and deeply unfair. And I'm sure Taylor would feel the same way. And at the mention of Taylor, whatever trance that Sam is in, he comes out if he agrees with her, he apologizes to her, and then he's like, I will leave you alone. It is at this that Percy then goes into the tavern. She sits down, she calls her dad, and her dad says, hey, by the way, did you know that Sue called me when your first byline ran? And that she wanted to ensure that even though you had this job, that you were still writing fiction because you were so talented. He then basically is like, you and your mom, very similar. You like to run away from your problems, which I understand after everything that happened because we were terrified. So now you're like, what the fuck has happened in the past? Because I know what's happened from the book, and I'm like, okay, it wasn't terrifying though. It wasn't a situation to be terrified over the way that it happens in the book. So whatever is like the show is driving us towards is pretty significant. And then her father says that Sam and Charlie will pack up after this is all over. They will go back to their lives, but that Percy could stay, that Percy could actually run the tavern, and that this might be the fresh start that she's looking for. I also just want to say, I'm going to touch on right here, just giving you a little byline by myself. It is like presumed that her mom is gay, that her parents separated, and that her mom is now dating a woman. And we never get anything else about that. She calls her mom in one situation, she calls her dad in another situation, and there is no like childhood trauma about my parents getting divorced and my mom being a lesbian. But okay, fine. Sam then says like, hey, Percy being here is bad for me. He says this to Charlie, and I don't really understand. And so like at this information, Charlie is not like, we will ask her to leave, we will, figure things out. Like his immediate go-to is like, we'll contest the will, which I was like, okay, that's not really Sam's problem. Sam isn't like, I have a problem with Percy owning the tavern. He's like, I have a problem with Percy physically being here in Barry's Bay right now in this particular moment in time. And Charlie is like, we will contest the will. One hand doesn't wash the other there, but fine. Sam calls Charlie his constant, which is what Percy had said to Sam. So he's literally taking Percy's words and like throwing them back at Charlie. And then Sam also says that Charlie is the only person that he trusts. And it's so obvious by the look on Charlie's face that Charlie is keeping secrets from Sam. So great. Can't wait. And then our last episode here is I Choose You, which is directed by Tara Nicole Wire and written by John Stevens. So I'm going to go present first here, and then we'll go into the past, and then we'll sort of do this last scene, which is like cutting in between both. So in the present, Sam is having a sexy dream about Percy, where Percy tells Sam that she owns him. She's like, I own you, and I own the tavern. Sam wants to be walked like a fucking dog by her, and I don't blame him. We love a man that's down bad. Jordie then poses some serious questions to Sam, like, number one, why are you contesting the will if you don't actually want the tavern? And then making a really great face in response to Sam when Sam's like, it's a family business. And Jordie just makes this incredible face, and he's just like trying so hard to see Sam's logic here. He's like, well, why are you contesting it if you're just going to sell it? Okay. He then questions why Sam would decide to propose to Taylor when he's clearly confused about Percy. It's obvious that Sam is doing this because of Percy's like long held Sam trauma dump that she did the night before after being bailed out of jail, that he's doing this in response to all of the confusing feelings that he's having about Taylor. And so Sam then is like, hey, I thought you were my best friend. Like, you're supposed to stand by my decisions. And like, here's what I have to say. As a woman on this podcast who supports women's rights and wrongs, I will say that a best friend's job isn't to agree with you or support you when you're making a mistake, which Sam clearly is by proposing to Taylor. And Jordie ends up looking to Charlie for backup that Sam is making a fucking mistake. Like, Jordie is trying to be the voice of reason without putting a damper on the day. And is finding that really difficult to do. Right after this conversation, Jordie then bumps into Chantal and Percy. And Chantal knows right away that Jordie is lying about something. Percy is the one that's like, hey, is everything okay? She can read it on his face. Jordie is a very easy and obvious read, which Chantal even says. But Chantal is the one that keeps pressing about it, even though Percy is trying to get her to stop. So he ends up spilling that Sam is proposing to Taylor, and Percy girl goes right into flight mode all day long. She's like, I gotta take a walk, Chantal. See you later. Percy gets back from her walk. She goes to talk to Chantal. Drew has shown up, and he's sick. So he's driven from the United States to Canada across a border because he's sick. To which Chantal says, he's a child and I don't want to be his mommy. And this is an unfortunate dynamic that many women find themselves in, that because women tend to possess something in them that is quite nurturing, not everyone, but that a lot of women end up being in a parentalized position with their partners, only to find that the resentment goes both ways. Because this is when women start losing interest sexually in men or in their partners, especially when they're being parentalized. Like, if I now have to look at you as a thing that I have to consistently take care of, I lose the sexual desire in that. Although some people, that's their kink and good for them. But this is an unfortunate dynamic that many women find themselves in. And I think she's right here to say, like, I don't want to be his mommy. I think it's very weird that he would be able to drive across the border to be able to find her in a hotel so that she could take care of him. Like, if you're driving across a country, crossing a fucking border to have your girlfriend take care of you, you didn't need to do that. You could have just stayed home. We then have this conversation between Taylor and Sam where she says, I'm not trying to be a jealous girlfriend, but do you think that your mom maybe wanted you and Percy to get back together? And the answer is yes, because Sue is unhinged and left the tavern to Percy. He says that she made that in 2021. And if that was the case, that she had 5 years to tell him that that's what she actually wanted. And the question is, like, why? Why has she not? And I think it's fucking weird that she didn't. And I think it's fucking weird that they make these mothers absolutely fucking unhinged in their death. It's like, in life, there are these like manic pixie dream girls almost for like our female characters. And I'm talking about Susanna as well here. It's like, it's not really to the boys or their sons. It's so much more like to Belly and to Percy. They are the manic pixie dream girl of their life. They are just like sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. They make everything possible. And then, like, only to find out that they are absolutely fucking unwell in their death and that they are making these really weird decisions in their death. So, because she made the will in 2021 and she was of sound mind when she made it and she was not sick when she made it, they can't contest the will. So Delilah officially ends things with Wit and has a conversation with Charlie where she is like, hey, everything is moving on. Sorry, I'm not going to get the tavern, yada, yada. You were a means to an end and a big, beautiful boy, which is true. And he is a boy. He's a man child. He is Sabrina Carpenter's #1 target for the song Man-Child. It is clear to me that Sue left Percy the Tavern because she knew that Percy would step up and run it, and that Sue clearly wanted to preserve the integrity of this space, and knew that Percy loved it and knew that she would take care of it, and that Sam and Charlie would go back to their lives, that Sam has always dreamt of being a doctor, and guess what? Now he is, and that Charlie is doing his own thing in Toronto. And so, like, I think when she thinks about leaving it to somebody, she doesn't want it to be sold to somebody who's going to change it all over. She wants somebody who's going to run it. And so I think that even though it's unhinged, Sue knows that Percy is the one that's going to step up to the challenge and actually keep it and run it and do what she's supposed to do with it. Drew, on the other hand, is the fucking worst. I don't really understand how Chantal ended up with this man. So Drew is not alone. He is with his half-brother, Jake, who we know that Percy has had sex with many times and who was with Percy when she had her panic attack when Charlie called. Anyway, Drew is the fucking worst. He doesn't know how to take care of himself at all. I don't understand how Chantal ended up with this man, how Chantal, my sweet baby angel, independent, fierce mama girl, ended up with a fucking loser like Drew. And the fact that she keeps saying, like, Drew is perfect, he doesn't even snore, Drew is perfect, he doesn't do this, Drew is perfect. Like, why? He can't take care of himself, he can't order food, he can't do any of these things. He's not perfect. He's a loser. You just think that he is cute and adorable, and you're taking care of him. So you feel, obligated to him in some way. So Jake and Percy, they go off on their own. Percy is like, I'm going to fuck my bad feelings away. And we will talk about that line in a little bit. Jake then asks Percy how many lucky guys got to enjoy this spot that they're at together with her, which is, first of all, a fucking gross thing to say. Like, if a man said that to me, I would also immediately break things off with them. She's just like, yeah, no, I can't do it. This spot is special to me and Sam. That's not what she says, but that's obviously what she's thinking. The fact that, like, when you're kissing somebody, you're asking about how many other people this person has got with here is, like, such a disgusting and weird thing to do. Men are truly freaks of nature, and I don't understand them. That's like an inside thought that you have in your head, not an outside thought that you say to the person that you're hooking up with as a grown-ass man. But okay. Percy goes and seeks out Delilah when she has nowhere to go. She doesn't want to go back to the room because LOL, Drew is sick and she doesn't want to get sick. So we know that something has also happened between Percy and Delilah, and Percy says that Delilah is too forgiving, and Delilah says it was a long time ago. She's let bygones be bygones at this point. Charlie then kind of comes back to Delilah, and Percy kind of overhears it. And Charlie is like feeling like he needs to justify himself. Whatever Delilah has said to him has like sparked the fact that maybe he wants a little bit more in his life and hasn't allowed himself to actually endeavor to achieve it. And so he goes on this whole tangent where he's like, I kept the tavern afloat. I put Sam through med school. I always tip 25%. Like he's going on and on and on about all the ways that he's a good person and that he's worthy to be with, essentially. And all of these things are fucking financial. Like that's his contribution. He doesn't realize that he might have a contribution emotionally or physically even outside of these things. But okay, he sees himself as a dollar sign to being able to support his family in this context. And that's how he perceives his like worthiness to other people. So I thought that was a really good conversation and a little bit more insightful about Charlie and who he is. Percy then like pulls Charlie aside and she's like, hey boy, you are spiraling and you need to rein it in because you're going to spill secrets number 1, 2, and 3, whatever they may be. And I need you to honor the agreement that we had. And Charlie is like, you inherited this tavern under false pretenses because if my mom ever knew what you did, she would fucking hate you and she would never leave it to you. To which I'm like, ew, Charlie, go away, you man child. Sam then chickens out of the proposal. Shocker. We knew this was going to happen. Chantal is standing up for herself like, no, this is not who I want to be, Drew. She doesn't want to be beholden to somebody like this. She doesn't want to have her life superimposed on by a partner that can't take care of themselves. And I love that women in this context can really want to be nurturing friends, which Chantal is to Percy and to Delilah too, from what we've seen, but also want partners romantically who are not codependent on them. So she wants a partner who can take care of her and knows what she needs. And right after she says that, Jordie shows up with soup. He shows up with Gatorade for Drew, and he shows up with ice cream for Chantal in a separate bag so that the heat from the soup doesn't melt the ice cream. And when she opens it up, she's like, mint chip, my favorite. And Jordie's like, yeah, I remembered. I mean, they're setting Chantal and Jordie up and really showing that Jordie is somebody who can anticipate needs and who doesn't care as much about his job and has sort of let go of his own dreams. And so he can really appreciate a partner who has her own ambitions. And I think that that's great. So then we have this final conversation where Charlie says to Delilah, I think I'm fucked up. And Delilah's like, maybe it's time to change. And so like clearly this whole episode is about change and who's allowed to change and who's not allowed to change and what rules and parameters are around these different long-standing relationships. But Charlie is seemingly only asking to be in this relationship with Delilah because Delilah has been available to him his whole life. Sorry, but like, ew, that's not a reason to be with somebody. And I think Delilah knows that, and that's why she's more willing at this point to let things go than she was maybe beforehand. So in the past, okay, it is New Year's Eve. So it's about 6 months, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe about 5 months from the time that Sam and Percy have seen each other last. And so the girls are there. Delilah and Percy are in Barry's Bay with Percy's parents for New Year's and for the holidays. Enter Mason. We've got Percy's boyfriend. We have both Delilah and Charlie telling Percy that Sam is an idiot for breaking up with her. We have Charlie, introducing Sam and Mason, where Sam kind of comes into the conversation. He's trying to figure out what's going on. And Charlie is like, hey, Mason, you should talk to Sam. You two actually have a lot in common. And he's obviously talking about Percy, So we love sassy Charlie. Cue the Nick Jonas music. Jealous starts playing. Sam comes in to claim his fucking steak. He brings up Percy's stories. He literally goes on and on and on, making his fucking point. And obviously, just like the longer that Sam keeps going on, making both Mason and Percy feel like absolute shit. So he's like, you obviously know what her favorite book is, right? And Mason's like, no, man, I don't. And she's like, it's Frankenstein because Mary Shelley wrote it when she was 19. She was a genius. And Mason's just like, I didn't know a girl wrote that. Like, a girl wrote that? I'm like, oh, fuck off, bro. Mason, who I actually quite like in the books. And we get very little in the TV show, but like I actually really like him in the book. He's like really not a bad guy. He treats Percy really well. So finally Percy pulls Sam aside and she's just like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, you came here to rub it in my face. And she's like, well, you don't get to dump me and then feel bad and want me back just because you see me with somebody else. Pop off, girl. Pop off. It's a little bit of both. Like, both of these things are happening. There is so much more insecurity in the book. And so, like, when Sam and Percy have a conversation where he's like, what do you even like about Mason? And she's like, he likes me back. Like, there's no definitive qualities that she likes other than the fact that, like, he desires her in a way that Sam has, like, made her feel rejected. And so there is something missing here. Like, it makes, again, Percy's motivation a lot more sinister instead of like driven by insecurity and rejection, which I really don't like. And again, here we have Charlie jerking Delilah around. So she decides to kiss Jordie at midnight. And thus, the Jordie and Delilah love triangle kind of kicks off. It's not really a love triangle, but it's just like the show is feeling a little incestuous to me. It's kind of feeling a little bit like Gossip Girl, where like all of these people have like hooked up with all of these people in a way where I'm just like, you don't need to do that. Like, in a show like The OC, like Marissa and Seth would never kiss. It just would never happen. I wish that there was just like a little bit more boundaries. So New Year's Eve ends, the girls go home, and then it cuts back to summer of 2014. Percy has since then dumped Mason, only to find out that Sam has a girlfriend. The girlfriend's name is Lake, which, like, again, of all the things that the show has now injected and given us, like, why? I don't understand. This is not like canonical to the book, in which case I would say, like, okay, well, they're just like keeping with the canon. Like, why would they decide to do this? Who thought this was cute? Who in the writer's room was like, this was a good choice? That just is fucking weird. It's weird. They comment on it in the show that it's weird, and it's weird that they would make that choice when there's literally any other woman's name. Have you met a woman? Like, I feel like Billy on the Street when he's like running through the streets and he's like, ma'am, name a woman for $1, name a woman. And the girl like can't do it for the life of her. If I can find the YouTube video, I'll tag it in the show notes. I'm sure I can find a YouTube video. I'll tag it in the show notes, but just like, name a woman. He like, the longer it goes on, she's like, any woman. And he like, a celebrity woman. And he's like, any woman, name a woman. She like can't do it. That's how I feel the writers were experiencing this conversation around what we should name fucking Sam's girlfriend that's going to be in the show for literally less than an episode. So great. The discovery that Sam spends all of his time with Lake because they work together and they go to school together is when Percy decides that she will get a job at the tavern to be near Sam all the time, which is also unhinged behavior. And I love this. At this point, neither Sam or Percy are wearing their friendship bracelets that summer, from what I saw. Let me know if you saw something different. So now we have this ending scene, okay, where it sort of cuts between the past and the present. So in the past, Sam asks her why she didn't say anything. She says, you're with Lake. And he says, Lake accused me of having feelings for someone else. I told her she was right, and she told me I had to choose. I choose you, Percy. In the present, Sam finds Percy and she says that she's just saying goodbye. She's going to go home. Present Percy asks, why is he not with Taylor? Because she knows in the back of her mind that he's getting engaged. And she says, Jordie, told me he tried to not tell me about the proposal, but Chantal is like a human waterboard, which I thought was a really funny line, to which Sam says, Taylor's gone. I told her you only have one chance at getting love, but what if you don't? What if you could get a second chance? In my notes, I wrote crying, screaming, throwing up because I thought this was like a nice way for him to make this confession to her where he says, I want you, Percy. I want to live an authentic life. What a beautiful line. I want to live an authentic life, in which like he is saying they're like, I love you and I've always loved you. And it would be inauthentic to marry anyone else because I have these feelings for you, strong feelings. I don't want to live a lie. And that's when Percy's like, baby, I have something to tell you. Okay. And that's our episode for today. All right. Let's dive into our feminist follow through for this episode. Let's be real. If Chantal was living in 2026, when the story is supposed to be taking place in America, trying to cross the border as a beautiful Black woman from Canada to America, and her passport was expired, her quippy little line about, I live here now, would not be a joke. Sadly, instead of just being allowed to stay in Canada, she'd likely end up in a really bad immigration situation. And under this current administration, that would not be good. So the current experience with ICE and what ICE has been demonstrating across our nation is one of the biggest faux pas and like misgivings and like just completely deplorable behavior in American history. So for our feminist follow through for today, let's protect our most vulnerable, the migrants and the immigrants that come to this country, people who are not immigrants or migrants who are being deported simply because they are not white. Let us be real about what ICE is doing and how they are using their administrative powers to make this country into something that they would like it to be. And I'm sorry, but this is what they did in Nazi Germany. And because they were shipping people to Poland, people weren't thinking about it as much until the situation got really, really bad. So we're going to do some work with fivecalls.org. You will be able to go and call your representative, and they have a script that you read out. It will say like, hey, blank representative, my name is, and it will say like bracket your name. It gives you a script. It's going to take you 30 seconds to read or call your representative and say it to them. So if you go to the link in the show notes, it's a specific link that will take you to one about immigration. It's very short. It's going to help you better advocate for the conditions in ICE centers. Not only does it give you the script, but it tells you why this is something that we need to advocate for. So all of that is in the show notes. That's your feminist follow through for this week. All right, let's crack open the burn book where we will look at the superlatives for this episode. The Bold and Bothered Award. This award is strictly for the femme and the furious. It is the quote or the moment that really relays the most feminine rage. And it goes to Percy getting a whole ass job to be closer to Sam because she is jealous of Blake. That is crazy girl behavior, and I support it. The Shiro Award goes to the baddie who is the most inspiring or the moment that is the most empowering. And it's literally any single time that Chantal mentions the fact that she's a fucking lawyer. She's like, but as your friend and your lawyer, you can do this. You think I'm going to go let you see the Florek boys alone? Friend and lawyer on the job. She then says when they're going into the reading of the will, she's like, I reserve the right to move from friend to lawyer on a case-to-case basis. She just loves to remind everyone that she's a lawyer and she's fucking good at it. The Femme Fatale Award, for the most smash the patriarchy moment of the episode. Low key, why is it Charlie telling Chantal that her boyfriend is a fucking child? Coming from a man child in Charlie to have him be like, I might be a man child, but that is a man toddler. He's just like, I will just slightly be more mature than this guy. And I love that for him. Speak Your Truth Trophy, the best quote or line. I have two. One is between Chantal and Percy, where Chantal's like, you cannot just fuck your bad feelings away. And Percy's like, Chantal, honey, watch me. The other is Percy talking to Sam after Sam's like, I got Jordie to play World of Warcraft with me and he loved it. Percy's like, you turned Jordie into your emotional support dork. Got it. Thought that was a really funny line. And then honorary heartthrob, because I'm just a girl, okay? And I want to talk about the most wound-worthy moments. And it goes to Jordie remembering Chantal's ice cream order. I love Jordie so much. I think he's really cute. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the schedule. If you're listening to this episode, I'm sorry, I'm on vacation. And I thought I would have more time to record all of these episodes before I leave. I have to tell you, you think that you're listening to a podcast episode that's I don't know how long this will be by the time I edit it, but usually there's somewhere between 45 minutes to like an hour and a half, right? Okay, great. Between watching the episodes of television multiple times, writing my show notes, getting on here and recording and editing, each episode takes me like 20 hours. I wish I was joking. I'm fucking not. So when I say I really tried to honor the schedule because I really just want to be done with Barry's Bay, but I don't want to rush through episode 6, 7, and 8 just to say that we're done. So I did change the schedule. If you're listening to this and you thought you would hear it on Friday, sorry. I put out the bisexual baddie draft on Friday because those are easier to edit because I don't have much to do when I'm having a conversation with somebody. I have a lot more to edit when it's just me and my unfiltered thoughts. So with that said, here's our schedule, and this will be true. Sorry I know I change my schedule around a lot, but I'm an indie podcast and I'm just one person and I host 2 podcasts and it's a fucking lot. This is my full-time job and I really need some help. So once again, if you can take over my social media, I would really appreciate it. We're going to have sort of a trifecta or a triple date with Femme and Furious over the 4th of July weekend. So July 3rd, we're doing House of the Dragon episode 2. July 4th, quickie episode called Dames of Democracy Annual Tradition. July 5th, every year after episode 6, 7, 8. I love you all tremendously. I will see you on Friday for House of the Dragon.